So let's proceed. May I invite now Ishwar. Please give a big hand for Ishwar.
Thanks for the introduction. I think Vasu gave a very good perspective on the breadth of products that are possible from here. As you're aware, Cisco has been a pioneer in routing paradigms, in internet routing. But it's been a company that's based in San Jose, Silicon Valley, and all of innovation and product development, conception of products has been driven from there, and other remote sites have kind of executed to the specifications. What I'm going to talk about is Cisco's latest paradigm in routing, which is rerouting innovation from India to the rest of the world. So 901 is a product that we developed from the India side completely, from conception, architecture, hardware, software development, testing, certification to launching in the market. And I'll use that as a case study to give you a sense of what we thought the challenges are and how we can solve them. A few disclaimers before I get into it. It's a infrastructure product as opposed to a consumer product. It's a full systems product, not just a silicon or a software product. Also, it's in the context of a remote site of a multinational company, a remote site in India of a multinational company. So keep that in mind, because there are some similarities with other things, but there are some differences as well. Companies that are local, that have grown here, might have certain advantages in building products, whereas MNCs might have some other advantages. So keep that in mind. So this is with those dimensions in mind. So just to give you a little context, Cisco has been in India for a while, but it's gone through a path of evolution, which is what resulted in building a product out of here. So for a long time, we owned components, and that moved to owning sustaining platforms. But in 2000, we put emphasis on building a site with a clear focus on making this an important center. And that was very key in bringing senior talent and developing some capability. And it's this evolution that ended up in the conception and design of a product like 901, IESA 901. By the way, IESA stands for Advanced Services Router. And we also had the first business unit completely located from here with P&L responsibility of conception of products. So that's a significant milestone. And it, as you can see, it took us a while to get there. And this is a typical path most MNCs follow, and we also followed that. How did the product come about? And there were two key inflection points that happened in 2009. One was from a site perspective. We were large enough, and we were wondering, what do we do next? Right? I mean, that's, again, a typical conundrum MNC remote sites go through, is what's your next growth path? And the second one was rapid mobile subscriber growth in India and China. So there was a large local market being created, which was a little difficult for Silicon Valley-centric companies to appreciate and tackle. So it was these two things that kind of came together to give birth to 901. And again, this is an eye chart, but this is just data which probably everybody of you must have seen. In 2009, 2010 especially, there was this massive build-out happening with a lot of subscribers, millions of subscribers being added per month, and it was that opportunity that we capitalized on. Let me give you a little sense of what 901 is about. So it's a cell-side carrier Ethernet mobile backhaul solution. It sits next to cell sites. There could be 2G BTSs, 3G Node Bs, or 4G eNode Bs. So one of the things about the product is it's a next generation LTE capable product, but at the same time it's backward compatible to 2G. And that's kind of one of the key goals we had in making sure we addressed emerging markets requirements. And here's again a list of capabilities of the product. I'm not going to go through it in detail, but a couple of key things I wanted to point out was it's a next generation technology breaking kind of product. It's not a commodity product. There's several things in there such as IPv6, a hierarchical QoS, and again, you don't read too much into the terms, but these are truly next generation technologies and the first of their kind in these kind of boxes, right? So that's important to note. It's not a simple commodity mobile backhaul switch. And there are a few dimensions to innovation in this box. It's a classic case of reverse innovation. We started with looking at requirements of emerging markets, but it's a global product, very competitive global product being sold to tier 1 customers all over the world. It's also a case of frugal innovation. We were focused laser sharp on cost and power because that was a absolutely necessity in these markets, in the local markets, but turned out to be an extremely attractive proposition in the developed markets as well. Then, of course, technology innovation, and there's several features here which are, as I said, first of its kind in this space, which enable a build-out of 4G LTE mobile backhaul networks. There's also a process innovation concept, and this process innovation is from an internal Cisco perspective as well as what we think is necessary for MNCs to kind of build things like this out of the Indian ecosystem. Now let me take you through the journey of 901, and that will kind of give you an example. So how did we take an idea and take it to a product that's a mainstream product capable of generating hundreds of millions of dollars for Cisco? It's a fast-growing market for Cisco and an important product in its portfolio. It's not a one-off product. It's a central product in its access portfolio. So it went through 3 phases. There was an incubation phase. There was a prototype development phase in a sandbox. And then there was a more mainstream product development phase, as I would call it, right? And this is kind of the rough timeline it took through. And I'll just give you a sense of how the focus changed, how the budget and team played out, what the visibility for the project was, and what the challenges were. So in the incubation phase, we basically went around talking to all emerging market service providers to see what exactly the requirements, how different the requirements were. We didn't have any budget to start with. There was enough to seed senior technical talents, so we seeded it with architects and with an architect and a product manager, and we defined the product. It was known only to a few people in the company, and the challenges were questioning the norm in the company. Addressing needs of a local market with low margins was a big controversial question in the company. So that's the challenge we had to face at that time. Then it moved to the incubation phase where we developed a prototype in a sandbox. By sandbox, I mean it was a small team cordoned off from the rest of the company. It wasn't as visible to the rest of the company. And we had a minimal funding to kind of get a few engineers. We also got into a risk and reward model with a partner. And that enabled us to get started on a prototype. What this phase did for the product development effort from India was that it gave it some credibility. Once we had the protos in the lab working, there was more credibility in the company that, yeah, this was real. Yes, this can be done from here. We also started getting traction from the field. Word got out that this type of a product is being built out. And in Cisco, sales and field drive a lot of influence and decision, right? So when that happened, that's when it really got traction. And then it kind of moved to a more mainstream product development. By that, I mean, really getting into quality hardware, software with all features, testing compliance, getting engaged with other central functions which are essential to getting a product from Cisco out. And we were able to build a small, lean team. The main challenge in this part was hiring the right skills and ramping up the team. Also, buy-in of the central teams, right? So we had worked in a sandbox, and then we had to go out to this large company and get the buy-in of other central teams like the network management team, like the operating system team, like the compliance testing team, who are essential in building the product. But this is what it took to get to a true product. And this is in retrospect. This is looking back. It was not how it was planned. After we launched the product, I took some time to step back and try to figure out how did we do this journey. And this is the picture that emerged as I kind of peeled the layers and tried to figure out what does it take to do something like that.